Hello and welcome to another episode of the Whole People Group podcast. At Whole People, we recognise that organisational excellence is deeply intertwined with the well-being of its people, and our mission is to seamlessly integrate well-being with performance because we understand that when individuals thrive, so does the entire organisation. Today, I am joined by Michelle Heaton, who's one of our associates. A lot of you will know of Michelle from Liberty X, from Loose Women, the TV, from the morning show, and Michelle's story's been out there for a lot of people to see. I'm really, I feel very blessed actually to sit and talk to you today, Michelle, about the menopause and about some of your experiences through the menopause. We have a menopause retreat coming up where you're co-hosting with Nikki Murphy and Miriam Jordan-Keane. So I thought we could just get together for half an hour and talk about your experience, the menopause in general, and yeah, maybe we can just help some people even in the next half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Simon.
So I guess, like a Whole People Group, we're a lived experience. The whole purpose of us is to get people together who've got lived experience. And I think the idea of winning and losing, right? Like there's the highs and the lows. And I think that you, like all of our associates, have been through some extraordinary ups and some extraordinary downs. And maybe you'd like to share a little bit about your journey with the menopause. I know you spoke to me before I press record about how that was a knock-on effect, lots of other things.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd like to share with us where you've been.
Oh gosh, where do I start, Simon? Right? It's like a minefield. It really is. I think, like, you're absolutely right. What we do here is that we share our experiences to those who might need answers to questions or feel like they're not alone, to know that there's somebody else out there who've been through what they are or what they're about to go through as well. And, we're not here to prescribe medicine. We're not here to tell you what to do. What we do here is share what we've been through so that you don't feel alone, and that maybe you can recognize something that we've said that might help along the way. For me, my menopause journey was very different to most people. I had a total hysterectomy when I was 33. And I had that procedure because I knew that I was BRCA2 positive. And so I had to, as closely as I could, eliminate the risk of ovarian cancer. 2 years prior to that, I had had a total, a double mastectomy and reconstruction as well, to help with the risks of having breast cancer. So, and I had 2 children in those 2 years as well. And life was a lot, but I was always that person, and I still am to some degree, where, what have I got to do? What am I faced with? What's my options? Right, I'll pick that and I'll crack on with it. And that served me quite well most of my life. But when it came to the menopause, and having been so young and with this new 6-month-old baby and a 2-year-old, navigating that at the same time, it was crushing, to say the least. I wasn't prepared. I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't seek support. I thought I had it all clued up by myself, and I certainly didn't. And I couldn't recognize when I needed to ask for help. What help looked like, I don't know, but I just didn't ask for it, and I kind of suffered quietly. I went into myself. I didn't feel like I knew who I was anymore. When I hit menopause, it's not like I woke up from the operation and then boom, I felt different. It was really slow, and the symptoms of menopause came on sporadically. And a lot of the time you think you're a bad person. Became irritable and snappy. I didn't want to be intimate with my husband. I was forgetful, all of these things that we know are associated with menopause. Some people have no symptoms, some people have all of them, and most people will have some. But what was menopause symptoms, or was it me going through a bit of postnatal depression, having 2 young children, being tired in general? It felt like it mashed together, and I couldn't quite recognize where I needed help with the menopause symptoms and what was maybe, my mind playing tricks on me. I turned to drink. I was always a bit of a drinker, but I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't addicted to alcohol or drugs. And I'm not saying by any means that menopause made me be that, But because I decided to suffer alone and kind of internalize a lot of the pain and not talk to people, I drank. And I found that when I drank, I didn't care so much. And I found that I had more relatability with my peers. You know, it's difficult going through menopause so early because none of your friends are going through it. Nobody can see most of your symptoms, and so it's hard for people to relate. And because I didn't get help or go to groups who are feeling like me, I just kept it all in and drank on that. And subsequently, I've had to go into treatment for drink and drug use. But that was 4.5 years ago. Um, you know, what I didn't know then is that alcohol actually increases the menopausal symptoms and actually decreases the work that the HRT is supposed to do as well. So it was very conflicting.
Wow, I mean, I remember hearing your story up in Scotland when we met for there was a speaking gig, and I remember thinking, you know, I'm also I'm in recovery programs and things for alcohol addiction and coming up to a decade sober, and my story feels like thank you, and I felt that way when you said you're sober too. I was like, you know, that one where you go on. I felt when I was listening to your story, you know, sometimes when people ask me to sort of dip into my story a little bit, and I feel like I can almost pull out from different pain points that I've been through. And I think the thing that with yours, I didn't when I heard you speak before, and even now I'm thinking this was what was the first domino or which one, you know, you just so many things are like motherhood. I mean, we know what it's like to have 2 young kids. That alone is really stressful. Then
Yeah,
you've got menopause alone is almost, you know, really stressful.
yeah.
Then you put in early menopause on top of that. I imagine probably being in the public eye wouldn't have made things much easier at all for you. And I think some of the people listening to the podcast, that might be an interesting thing to talk about is how do you go through that,
Yeah,
make sense of what you're going through, and show up as a mother and show up as when you've got hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people expecting you to be Michelle Heaton,
yeah,
right? And you've got to
yeah.
show up and be the you before it all happened.
Yeah, you know, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, the answer to that is that yeah, how can I expect to do all that without breaking down? You know, like I say, I turned to drink to cope. It was my happy place. I felt safe, you know, it was welcoming. You know, anybody who's in recovery or who's struggled like we have with alcohol abuse, they understand those terms with it. I found that, you know, with alcohol, those other things didn't matter so much. But yeah, you know, turning up as Michelle Heaton, as a celebrity on stage, still performing in the band and sweating and confusion and dry mouth and not being able to sing and you know, worried if my scars are going to show, you know, all of these little things mount up, and on stage you're not allowed to show that. You know, people pay to come and see a performance.
Yeah.
It's really difficult sometimes. It's difficult a lot of the time to, you know, no matter what you're going through, you have to leave it at the door. And that's what I've been trained to do, right? As a showman, um, theatrically speaking, you leave it at the door and you get on that stage and you do your job. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
But all of these other things that then crept up through menopause, as well as everything else on the outside world, it was just like everything was screaming in my ear. You know, when I had AJ, I suffered from postnatal depression. And obviously going through the menopause so early had its play on that. But when he was born, actually only 6 weeks into his little life, he was treated for I was about to say menopause there, for bacterial meningitis, and they thought it was meningococcal at one point, so it was a lot to deal with. And the reason behind that is I felt a failure as a mum because I wasn't able to breastfeed him because of my double mastectomy 2 years prior to that. And that's me. Like, nobody else said anything about it. That's me putting pressure on me and blaming me. I'm quite good at blaming myself, and putting it all on me. And that made me drink because I felt like also I was punishing myself. Again,
Mm.
people might relate to this, oh, well, I deserve it. Or, well, I deserve to be miserable. I deserve to be in pain. Look what I've done to my newborn baby. I can't even breastfeed them because of a decision that I selfishly made. Or, that's my thought process, or that's how I used to process things. And a lot of the time when I talk out openly, life's not like that today. You don't need to talk down to yourself.
Yeah.
Life is beautiful. There are ways that we can manage things. Sometimes we just need to pause and reflect and take a moment about what's going on around us, and just take that deep breath and breathe, and going through the menopause and being able to study it in an exercise facility, and study it when it's well-being and mental health challenges and even nutrition. It's taught me a lot about how we can maybe change the transcript on how we deal with menopause and maybe make it a bit more comfortable than having to go and looking for options of drugs from the doctors or whatever it might be. There are ways that we can help control our body through things that are beyond our control.
I really like that. And Whole People's been founded upon the ancient principle in the tribal culture that you never go through anything alone, right? Like I was saying to Nikki and Mim, you never, ever, ever, up until maybe like 50 years ago, did people go through anything alone. Motherhood, I remember Jess, when we had the twins, Jess said, "Where is everybody?"
Yeah.
She felt it in her bones that she could almost feel our ancestors being surrounded by women. And we found out that the tribes, all the women would be surrounded by all the women while they were giving birth. And
Yeah.
if you look at the way we go through anything now, there's so much isolation. That's why fellowships and groups and things like make such a difference.
Yeah.
But actually, that's normal. Like that's the way we're meant to be going. I'm interested to hear where did it shift? Because you were obviously, was there a rock bottom? With the menopause and with the drinking, was there a wake up point? Did you ask for help? Like, how did it turn a
Yeah.
corner?
For me, it got pretty dark pretty quickly. I was receiving HRT and it wasn't working. I didn't realize it was the drink that was counterpart in that. I had a lot of lows, Simon, I'm not going to lie. And I think the day that I asked for help, it wasn't necessarily my greatest low, but I was with somebody else who was like me, who had got help, who was sat there sober and not suffering like I was. And that's why what you just said is so important, because having groups and a community of people like what we're doing on the retreat, like what we're doing here today, sharing shared experiences, realizing that you're not alone, maybe relating to something that I say, or Mim says, or Nikki says, or you says, and then recognizing actually, I'm like them too. Maybe I can progress as they have. Maybe I can ask for help too. Oh, look, I'm not alone. So it took that one day for me to recognize that it's not just me. I don't need to suffer alone. And when I recognized that from somebody who had got help, then I asked, how did they do it? And that was the turning point.
What did you do after that? Did you follow the map? I mean, was there an asking for help? I mean, how did you
Yeah,
then get on the
I
recovery path?
I asked, what did you do? Listened, and I said, I don't know how to do that. That was in the form of going to treatment and just going away for 28 days, which is a long time. And whilst I knew a little bit about rehab and I knew about, getting help 2 years previous, because there was a point when my husband was going to put me in there, and I said I wasn't going to go, said I was going to do this by myself and I could stop. And I really, really believed it. I had no idea that I couldn't stop. And then in those 2 years, that's when it turned really dark for me, because I just couldn't stop. So then I was lying and hiding it. And so I just asked that person to help, and I gave them my phone, and they rang Hugh and my manager and one of my best friends, and for them collectively within 48 hours got me the help that I needed. It was always there. The thing is that people know, and you think you're fooling them. And there is hope there, 9 times out of 10, there are people that love you who are just waiting for you to say, okay, I'm ready. And when you say those words, okay, I'm ready, I need help, I can't do this alone, they've usually got something waiting, because also now you're ready to listen. Because even if they had told me all of that before, I wouldn't have listened. I had to be ready.
And I hear that all the time. I have the same experience. I mean, people say to me, God, people come to me, when I got into recovery, I remember people coming to me and saying, God, I wish I'd come to you earlier and I wish I'd asked you how you were. And I said, it wouldn't have made a difference.
No,
It wouldn't have made a difference.
exactly
You're off the
right.
hook, mate, because you could have come to me. I remember one of my sponsors saying to me, and this actually, I kept this through my recovery. He said to me, Simon, this is a character defect of mine. He said, Simon, sometimes I think if I gave you a blue pill and it would solve all your problems, you would tell me it's the wrong color.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah,
that, and I
exactly.
had that. Like, no, that's not the. No, I'm going to do this my way.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, it was always, like I thought I had it. Like I could do this. And then, early on, I suppose before those 2 years, I didn't want to change the way I drank because I kind of liked it. I liked the chaos because chaos meant that I didn't have to look at myself.
yeah.
And that's a lot of the time why we drink, because we feel uncomfortable with ourselves. We're not happy with how we are as a person. We feel uncomfortable in social situations, which is me to a T. Still to this day, I have what we call in the industry imposter syndrome. And
Right.
it's actually quite, frequent. A lot of us feel like that. I feel like one day someone's just going to tap me on the shoulder and go, do you know what, Michelle? I'm just joking. You weren't meant to be a singer in a band. You can go home now. It's all just been a right laugh. And I feel like that constantly, and I still have to work on that today. It doesn't just go overnight. So with that kind of imposing, weight on my shoulders throughout my career, drink helped me release some of that weight, and that was one of the reasons why I drank.
So if there's women listening right now, I mean, we'll talk about the retreat and what you and Nikki and Mim are going to create. But one of the things that's really interesting is the opportunity to get away. I mean, I did 3 months in a rehab, and even now, Jess and I, we try and get away a night here and there. You, if someone's listening to this right now, and I'm hearing things like, going through it alone and wanting to reach for help. I mean, if there's a lady who's going through this right now and is smack bang in the middle of the menopause or perimenopause, what do they do if they currently don't have anyone around them who can help
Yeah.
them, they think can help them?
I think that first of all, obviously go to your GP and ask for any associated groups that are around your area. Google it. There are, there are helplines around. And also I'm sure that after this, we'll put some helplines up there and some websites to go to as well. But what we can do as well, what we're trying to do is just expose the narrative on it. And I do think that the narrative about menopause and and all of the prejudgment that some people have about it is shifting. We're a part of it, but we're not all of it. And I do believe that the narrative on that and the way that people see it and talk about it openly is shifting. Half of the population goes through menopause. It's not just a few of us. We might all look different. We might all feel different or go through it at different ages and have different symptoms. But half of us go through it together. So there is always people that want to talk and listen out there.
What's some of the things that have helped you? What's been the pathway? It sounds like you found a real roadmap in recovery, but also through the menopause journey. I mean, what's moved the dial for you and what's made a really big difference?
Just being open and talking to people, I think as soon as somebody knows that you're going through the menopause, it's like this, right? I like this. It's like when you get your period and you think you're the only one. Like my daughter's age group is kind of that age group, and they won't talk to each other or tell each other that gone through the period or that they might be coming on or whatever it might be. And then one of them says something, and then they're all like, oh my God, me too, and then that's it. That's their little group that they can confide in and talk to and get little tips on and stuff like that. It's the same for menopause. If you feel comfortable and you're open to it, be open about where you're at with women. It might not necessarily be your age group, but like you'll find women all over the place. The gyms is a great place to open up that narrative. And if you think somebody is talking about it, relate to them in a conversation. You know, when I go to the gym now, I think it's almost like every other day I find somebody new who I can overhear talking about the menopause or something like that. Or I'm not sure, I might be peri. I join in the conversation now. And I feel like I get a bit of therapy out of that. You know, like me talking to you today gives me a sense that I can get things out. Something that I wouldn't necessarily talk to my husband about, something I wouldn't talk to my kids about or some of my friends, not because they wouldn't listen, but because, you know, I don't want that to be the narrative of our conversations. It's almost easier to talk to strangers than it is sometimes your family, and I understand that.
And the thing I think you have a better insight on than most. You know, I hear these stories of, so a friend of mine's wife is a QC, she's a judge, and she's built an extraordinary career on her mental faculty of being a judge, right? And she's going through the menopause right now, and she's forgetting where she is while she's on the stand in the middle of cases. And she's going through a huge identity shift, and professionally, you can imagine what that's like. And that's the thing I'm hearing across the women that I'm speaking to about this is, and I can't even imagine, right? Like I have a healthy sense of who I am when I come to work because I'm good at what I do, and I know I'm good at what I do. And like you would have that when you're on the stage, you know that. What two questions? What's that like when the thing that you've built yourself up on starts to shake? And that's my first question. And the next one is, how do you show up through that? Because I don't think I've met anybody that would be under more pressure than you've been under to show up through that. I mean, I know even just showing up for kids, right?
Yeah,
But the
that's
level of
it.
performance that you have to go through as a pop star or as someone who's on a stage or as a leader or the CEO of a company or a mother. So it's what's it like when the foundation shakes and you're there, and then how do you get through that?
You know, it's hard. And fundamentally, the hardest job in the world going through menopause is having kids, you know, young kids. Um, yeah, throw into the mix performing or being a judge or, you know, a company director, whatever it might be. Like that's something else, you know. But just showing up, just getting out of bed sometimes, it's a real struggle. You know, when it comes to menopause in the workplace, I've done a lot of work with companies and had the pleasure of speaking at different events as well. And I do believe the narrative there is shifting as well,
Yeah.
because, you know, whilst there's probably support for a lot of mental health issues as well, menopause comes under that most
Yeah.
of the time anyway, you know, because all these symptoms that can happen has a havoc to play on your mental health state as well. So I do believe that things are changing in the workplace when it comes to maybe days off or getting some counselling and things like that. You know, that there were things in place where if you suffered from a bad period, you would be able to have days off, and I believe that that's coming in
Yeah.
place, if not already, with menopause, and that's great news. But you know, I'm not going to lie to you, like I haven't got all the answers yet.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of you know, this group and talking openly, is that, you know, I want to learn from other people as well.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue of everything. I just know that it's better than it was.
And so in a few weeks, you, Miriam Jordan Keane, former British Gas, you know, on the board of lots of charities, and Nikki, you know, entrepreneur, and just
I
this
know,
incredible,
amazing ladies and little old
and the
pop
amazing
star.
ladies and yourself, and the three
Oh
of you.
my God.
I said to Nikki and Mim, I'm not quite at the point where I wish I was a menopausal woman,
Oh
but
no.
I'm nearly there where I'm like, I wish I could at least be a fly on the wall. The
Yeah.
opportunity, you know, the putting this together as a founder of Whole People, I'm very excited about the opportunity that some of our clients might have to go away. We're all about safety. You and I understand more than most people the power of a non-judgmental, safe space to be able to go and share what's really going on. And that's at the core of what we do, to share lived experience. Maybe you can tell us just a little bit about what you and Mim and Nikki have come together, and what you're looking to create for these 12 women that are going to be able to go away with you in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, no, we're very excited, obviously. And, you know, the ladies on board come with a pillar of support and also a lot of knowledge as well. And I come from a lot of lived experiences, especially with it being a slightly different journey with hitting menopause early. You know, we're going to have a beautiful day. We're going to share our stories and invite other people, if they feel comfortable, to share their stories too. You know, think about it not as like a counseling session, or that we're going to be, you know, just reading off a page all day. We're going to have a little community. And that's what's beautiful about it. It's going to be a really safe place, no judgment at all. We can all have a bit of a laugh as well, and that's what I love. I love the fact that we can have, it's really important to me that we share like funny stories and anecdotes, as well as maybe, moments that might make you get upset or cry or just let things out. It's that kind of place where you can just let it all hang out at the front door. And I'm really excited as well to be talking about, exercise and healthy well-being and nutrition as well. We're going to bring some of that educational element to it. Give you an e-booklet to take away and have a look at yourself. It's all about kind of addressing not just what happens on the outside, but what happens on the inside can make a huge difference of how we approach and how we go through menopause as well. But all in all, I just want it to be a really nice, fun, safe day with women who are just talking about how we feel.
I like that. And I remember one of my first teachers said to me, and he said this about men, but I'll use women the same. He said, Simon, men don't need therapists. And I remember thinking, oh, thank God for that, because I'd seen enough therapists. He said, men need brothers, fathers, uncles, grandfathers, nature and God. He said, you need all that, right? Like brotherhood. And I think that to move that across to women, and I think we need each other, men and women, but women need sisters, mothers, grandmothers, and this idea of sisterhood that Jess, she talks about it so much. My wife, this idea of, Rob, our co-founder, our departed co-founder, he studied the tribes, and he said that men and women, they spent not much time together. He said women spent a lot of time with women, and the men spent a lot of time with men, and then they would come together and share. But the idea of sisterhood and brotherhood as a core pillar of well-being, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To make friends and share deeply and be in each other's company.
100%. And I always thought like women were the enemy. I was scared of women, and I think women might have been scared of me, but actually I was petrified, because scared of not being liked or judged or pushed away and not being included. That was like a massive thing for me growing up at school, not being included in things and not feeling wanted with women. And it's shifted completely, especially after coming into recovery, because in recovery we say men for men and women for women. And I found that the friendship groups that I've got with women now, and that sisterhood is so important, and it's vital. I've got a really, really gorgeous relationship with my husband, and I'm very fortunate that I do share everything with him, and I've got a great listener. But sometimes he switches off. Women kind of don't when we're talking about what we relate to. And it's just a really safe place as well to talk to someone who's going through the same thing. Our husbands suffer too, our partners suffer too, our children can suffer too. Anybody who you live with, when you're going through menopause, they also struggle, because sometimes they don't know what to do for the right thing. I had the pleasure of doing a podcast a while back on some radio interviews, and me and my husband together, and we were interviewing partners of those who are going through menopause, and it was heartbreaking to find that they don't have the answers either, and sometimes they need support. So I think it's really important, especially maybe at the retreat, that we can talk about maybe how we can tell our partners how to support us.
Well, I'd love to know, that's something these podcasts are much for me, and I think Jess is watching them with the same thing, because Jess will go through the perimenopause, maybe it's now soon, and there's a really great male coach who I really respect, and he works with men married men whose wives are going through the menopause, and his messaging is really strong. It's about this is your time to hold, and how important it is to you think you unconditionally love someone. You've got to show that. I have people in my network who, I'm sorry to say, have traded in their wife for a younger model. Like, one has literally said that out loud, right? And in a coaching session. And I know that part of the masculine psyche exists in our culture, right? When women, and it's like when childbirth and these rites of passage that women go through, I think that there is a huge opportunity for men to be educated and told the truth about what it really requires, not.
I agree.
To go through it, it's an extraordinary thing. You get stronger. It's like going through childbirth or anything together.
Unfortunately, or fortunately for you guys, you'll never actually really get to understand what that feels like. You know, even if we really broke it down for you, you're out of luck there. But yeah, you know, being a supportive partner for someone who's going through menopause is vital to their journey. And sometimes it doesn't require anything. Sometimes it just requires you to be, you know, and not over analyze everything that the person's going through. I think sometimes that's actually stronger than trying to make everything okay. Sometimes trying to make something okay when actually sometimes we just got to go through it and it can make it worse.
That's a brilliant piece of advice. That is just my whole life. Don't fix, just be. Don't fix, just be.
On certain situations, but you know, if the bin's
Yeah,
smelly, you need to fix the bin and
that's
take
right.
it
But a
out.
bin's not a person. My teacher always said that people are not cars that need to be fixed. They're flowers that need to be watered. And he said, you know,
Yeah,
men will
beautiful.
get the hood up, will start trying to fix it, and don't try and fix everything. Michelle, I just want to congratulate you on your recovery and just to even be here. I remember listening to you speak in Scotland, and you know, I just wanted to, you know, you're someone who, you make my recovery stronger. I
Oh,
mean, we're
darling.
incredibly blessed to have you as a part of Whole People Group. And I think the idea that you and Mim and Nikki can get together, and I hope, I mean, I've been looking recently, and there's a market out there if people want to do menopause retreats,
Yeah.
because they don't really exist. The idea of taking women away to do what we're doing, you know, it's almost a new thing, and I think it's something that
Yeah.
should be more of a part of our culture.
It might be a new thing, but I think you know, it's a long time overdue. Having a
Yeah.
community base and having, like you said, that sisterhood of people and, you know, going through the same things who just want to know a little bit more, or maybe just share something that they're not able to share with their loved ones. No judgment, and that's what it's all about.
Michelle, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Those that want to come onto the retreat or are interested, send me a direct message, or the flyer will be around as well. But just get in touch to anyone at Whole People Group, and there's currently some spaces available. And I think even if we fill this one out, we'll probably look to do these as regularly as there's demand, right? Like, as long as there's
Fingers
some demand,
crossed.
we'll
There's
put these on.
always someone going through menopause, so I'm
There's
sure.
51% of the population. Michelle, thank you so much.
Thanks, Simon.